Welcome into a new edition of Beyond the Arc right here on High School Cube News. Brian Chimino with you once again with Michael O'Brien of the Chicago Sun-Times. And we're going to start off the show talking about the When Sides Collide shootout that took place this past Saturday at Glenbard East. And we're talking about the number 1 Marian Catholic Spartans versus number 6 Stevenson Patriots. Mike, it was billed as Euless versus Brunson, and both point guards really delivered.
Yeah, they sure did. Jalen Brunson was just phenomenal, 32 points, and he was so efficient. It was funny, I talked to his father, Rick Brunson, the former Bull, just before the game, and he was talking about how he told Jalen, he's just got to try to be efficient, can't shoot so as much as he had been, and wow, did he do that. I mean, he just played a tremendous game. And Tyler Euless, not real great for 3 quarters, actually. His shot's been a little off all year, especially from 3. But the fourth quarter, it was just absolutely amazing. He scored or assisted on 26 consecutive points, turned a 17-point deficit into a 3-point deficit, made it a game. He's just an amazing player, and that's why it's so hard to ever kind of pick Marian Catholic to lose, because Euless has this that he can grab, and it's really impressive. But Stevenson, man for man, is definitely the better team right now.
So Stevenson got out with a 76-66 win. Stevenson up to number 4. Marian Catholic drops to number 5. And that means a new number 1, obviously. It's the Curry Condors. I think one of the best teams in the state. I've thought about that for the past month or so. Young in at number 2, Mike. Does it seem like Curry and Young are sort of separating themselves from the rest?
I don't think so. I think we've got a pretty good hierarchy with Young, Curie, Stevenson, and Marian Catholic. Zion, is up there. They're number 3 now because they did beat Stevenson. They haven't played the schedule, though, that those other 4 teams have. Not even close. So they still have a lot to prove. They're basically just holding on to that one big win against Stevenson, which in a couple weeks could get flipped around. So I don't think I'd put them up there, but I think the other 4 are right there and close. And I think it's kind of funny that we're probably not too far away from being back where we started, maybe with Young back at number 1.
And when you look at the top 25, 2 teams that dropped, Simeon down to 13, Morgan Park down to 14, and you kind of look at those resumes, and you can kind of make sense why they have dropped like that.
Yeah, Morgan Park has a decent resume, but it was pretty ugly, the loss to Simeon. I think the teams combined for 64 turnovers. Both coaches after the game were just kind of shaking their heads, wondering what they'd watched. Simeon, if you go back and look, they've only beaten 1 ranked team. And it's late January. They have the win over Morgan Park, and that's it. They barely escaped St. Charles North. They barely escaped Oak Park. So they really can't justify them right now in the top 10. Moved up Orr and some other teams with some better wins ahead of them.
When we look at the upcoming schedule this weekend, not a lot of marquee games to look at, but some interesting ones. And Mike, you're headed down south, Bradley-Bourbonnais versus Thornton, which is very intriguing.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Late January and then through February, I get to see some of the other teams, not necessarily, the top 15, top 25. Thornton had a really rough start to the year. We expected a lot from them. They returned, almost their entire starting lineup. They were supposed to be a top-notch team, and they seem to have been that team over the last month. So I'm excited to finally get a look at Thornton. I can't remember when it's been so late in the year before that happened. And Bradley-Bourbonnais, there's exciting things happening there. They might be their best team since the 90s. Zach Hollywood and Benet Schemmelfenning are their 2 best players. They got 4 starters back from last year. I don't think they are quite sure how good they are, and this Thornton game is going to be a huge, exciting test for them. It's going to be a fun game.
And this Saturday, it's the annual War on the Shore held at Loyola every year. It's a triple header starting at 4:30. Game number 1, New Trier, who's trying to stay above 500. They'll face the Notre Dame Dons. But the other 2 games are really intriguing. At 6 o'clock, you have the Evanston Wildcats. You get to look at one of the top freshmen in the state versus Benet Academy, who had a real rough weekend last week, blew a couple games.
Yeah, Benet is kind of doing the Marian Catholic thing, except they get big leads and then lose them. They did it to Marian Catholic. They lost to Milwaukee Hamilton after having a lead in the teens. It's tough when your guards aren't rock solid. And Sean O'Mara has been an absolute beast this year. There are plenty of other years when Sean O'Mara would be a player of the year contender, if not the player of the year. He's played that well. But the guards are just a little bit shaky. So Bennett's got a real test on their hands. And Evanston, I haven't seen in a good month and a half now. They've gotten some big wins. Nogel Eastern, the freshman you talked about, has gotten better. Mike Ellis is just a great coach. So that team is peaking at the right time. This is when you want to start getting better, and that would be a huge win for Evanston if they could pull it off.
And the main event at 7:30, very intriguing. You have the number 9 Loyola Ramblers versus number 11, the St. Viator Lions, who are just smoking hot right now, and they're finally healthy too.
Yeah, Viator, I was all in to start the year, then I jumped off the wagon after the loss to Prospect. Wasn't too impressed with them against Tinsdale Central, which they won in overtime, but I've heard really good things. People think that they might have turned the corner lately. And then you've got Loyola, who they are so close to being a great team. So close. They don't know how to be a great team yet. They took their foot off the gas against Fenwick. They were beating Fenwick at every phase of the game. Then all of a sudden they start running their real long offenses, waiting for the perfect shot. The best shooters in the state need to shoot the ball. They just need to shoot more and have some more faith in how good they are. So this is going to be a test, because if they don't have that faith and if they don't play like that, Viator has the horses to beat them and give Loyola their first loss to any team in the state. I mean, it's late January and Loyola hasn't lost to anybody in Illinois.
So you can read about all those games plus more and check out the entire top 25 right here on High School Cube News. Before we leave, we got to throw a shout out to Beth Long. She's been doing the MVP segments the entire high school basketball season, and we've neglected to mention them over and over again. Just did a great one with Cliff Alexander last week. You can check them all out right here on High School Cube News. That'll do it for this edition of Beyond the Arc here on the website. For Michael O'Brien, I'm Brian Chimino. We'll see you guys next week.